It's, of course, The Rock returning to SmackDown got announced on the Thursday, and it led to lots of speculation about what was going to happen. Was he just coming back for a little bit of a promo of, the next Mania? Was he going to actually be doing anything storyline-wise? Turns out it was both.
Yeah.
So The Rock comes back to a snazzy intro package and to some interesting music, New Orleans themed, which instantly gave the game away as to what he was going to announce. And of course, he started out with the announcement of New Orleans is going to be hosting WrestleMania 42, which wasn't a surprise to anyone because it had long been rumored. And I am now down to the final two big pay per views to get my prediction in for London hosting one of them next year. Fingers crossed it's SummerSlam because God only knows what a London in Survivor Series would look like.
Oh,
Anyhow,
I love that so much.
I mean, I would love that as well, but it would be cold as all hell. Anyway, so with that being said, Rock comes out, announces WrestleMania 42, and then does what Rock tends to do in his promos when he gets given an unlimited amount of time and tends to ramble on about a few things. I think at one point thanks the crowd for Moana 2 getting over $1 billion at the box office. Was a bit strange, really. Again,
Yeah.
I don't mind The Rock having time for promos and being able to do his thing, but this kind of seemed a bit elongated. And then eventually he got to the sort of the matter of the whole thing and asked Cody to come out.
Mm.
And Cody came out to his usual pomp and circumstance, got the woes from the crowd, and The Rock's looking very happy to see his new best friend Cody and looking cheerful and having a big bright smile on his face. And then Rock's does his usual of, thanking Cody for carrying the company over the past year, being a true champion to the masses and really being a stand-up guy like we know Cody to be over the past year or so, or really since he's been back in the company. And then Rock gets down to the nitty-gritty and he says, look, I want you to be my champion. I want you to represent me. I want you to basically be my champion, carry that belt for me, and I will give you everything that you could have ever possibly wanted out of your career. You're sitting at around a couple million Instagram followers. I have tens of millions Instagram followers. I am the most followed man in America on Instagram. Really drawing on the fact that Instagram apparently is the be all and end all for all wrestlers, apparently. But hey, the
Obviously.
Rock's gonna rock. And then when I thought we were kind of losing it a little bit, we got to the very end of the promo, and The Rock kind of said, well, The Rock said, the thing that I want most of all is that. And he seemed to be pointing at the title, and Cody started to smirk, doing the usual Cody thing, and was like, oh, so this is what it's all about. You want the belt. You want me to essentially give you the belt. That's what you want. And you'll give me everything I've ever wanted. And he's like, no, 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 no. No, 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 Cody. I want your soul. And then put his hand on his face like a loving partner would, and then left. Um, and again, wasn't a big fan of the segment overall. I think the very last bit kind of saved it a little bit in terms of building curiosity as to what might happen next.
Mm.
I do think they were trying to build off to this big payoff right at the end, and it just kind of, the way the preceding three quarters of the segment happened, it didn't really pay off.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it didn't really work. And then the aftermath of the promo and the segment when The Rock did his post SmackDown conference and saying that me and Cody have this really interesting dynamic where we don't necessarily have to have a wrestling match for a
Mm.
payoff. And I'm sitting there, like a lot of people are probably sitting there watching this going, do you understand what wrestling is?
Mm.
The name's in the title.
Yeah.
Payoff requires a match of some kind or some form of physical interaction
Mhm.
for there to be the build up for the story required. Now, of course, you could have maybe someone represent The Rock, or you could
Mm.
have, the Bloodline be The Rock's representatives in a match, or something along those lines, where The Rock's maybe the manager in a match, and maybe you get that way, and that's fair
Mm.
enough. But the way The Rock made that sound was very much as if there isn't going to be some form of confrontation for them two.
Yeah.
And uh, again, I'm flying it all the way back to the Raw after Mania, where it was very much teased that when The Rock came back, that was where we were going. Now, of course, there's the big Roman match that everyone's clamoring for, and there's a few other, people that they could go with. But it just fell a bit flat, I think, from the hype. And yeah, what were your thoughts on the segment as a whole, Bragster?
I get your point. Like as you said, it was all building to that ending of the segment. The entire point of it was to go for that line of "I want your soul," to then obviously lead to what's going to happen at Elimination Chamber, and they're going to be a whole segment, which I presume, knowing The Rock and Cody Rhodes, that's the reason why there's less matches on the Chamber card, is because this is going to last 20 minutes. And it's going to be one big granddaddy of a segment with many, many layers. It wouldn't surprise me if there are twists and turns that entire segment. But I think it's interesting, more so in the sense of what's come after and the hype from wrestling fans and the dirt sheets and all the reports coming out afterwards. It has thrown Mania out of the window completely. Everyone thought we knew what was happening at Mania, or had maybe one or two ideas of what could happen. Congratulations, WWE. If you wanted to confuse every single wrestling fan, you've done it. You've completely done it. And we don't know what's happening. For better or for worse, whatever you think on that scale, we know nothing heading into Elimination Chamber. It has also blown the Elimination Chamber match completely out the window. Because, as you pointed out, wrestling usually finishes in the ring. So therefore, if they are building to a Rock Cody match, then what the hell is the Chamber match for? Like, what's going on there? And if, like, then they do have a match, are they going to do what they did last year, a night one, night two scenario where Cody wrestles both nights again? Are they going to do a situation where The Rock inserts himself into the Elimination Chamber and win it somehow? Or are they going to do what The Rock is saying and not do a match, and that actually the culmination of this story happens, their story happens at the Chamber, and Cody goes on to continue his story, and The Rock continues to have his story, and their ending happens at the Chamber? I don't know. No one really knows. And I mean, that's part of the excitement and also the issue, in the sense of the segment itself didn't really blow minds. It's not like the classic Bloodline segments where I am going to, in the future, rewatch all those different segments, whether that be Jay's turn, whether that be, the Sammy court scene, whatever it may be, all of these different segments culminating together, that we've known to be cinema this entire time. This wasn't cinema. This wasn't it. This wasn't the big granddaddy of a segment that is going to be talked about for years to come.
Yep.
That it's just not going to be that. So ultimately, the point they got across and the hype they wanted, it's there. It's 100% there. No one can deny that. But in terms of the actual quality of the segment that we had, I don't think hit the heights that maybe they wanted.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that my concern is that if they don't hit on Saturday with that segment, then it's kind of been a bit of a waste of what they could have had, or what they could have built to elsewhere and used that time for.
Yeah.
But we've seen it where maybe something didn't start out that great. If it's given the chance that it could maybe pick up a bit of steam and go somewhere, so we'll see. And again, it could well be that leads to additional wrinkles to the Chamber match.
Yeah.
It could be they could even end the Chamber pay-per-view with that if it leads to something big at the end, and it just, I do have a left field theory, but I'll get to it when we get to the Chamber predictions.
I've got many different ideas in my head of what's going around. What I will do is I'll leave mine until then, but I'll throw out a couple now that I've seen online.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of which, just so we can discuss them, because I feel like there are many different avenues this could go down, and I want to cover the ones that I've kind of seen online and I think that could be very interesting. One of which, depending on who you believe that may be, is that Cody won't sell his soul, someone else will. And that leads them to win the Elimination Chamber match and go on to face Cody Rhodes. That earlier in the night, Cody says no. The Rock finds someone backstage. You fight, maybe comes out of their pod last, something like that, that leads to them winning the match. That then it gets announced afterwards that they had aid in some way, shape, or form, or there's an actual interference that aids the match in some way, shape, or form. That is theory number one that I've seen online. Theory number two is that somehow, some way, this ends up back at Roman and Cody. Roman and The Rock through this entire thing. And having that thread of Punk possibly like selling his soul or in some way, shape, or form getting to that main event and facing Cody. And then you have the favor be that Roman takes The Rock off of his hand. Something along those lines, right? That there is some combination involving those four people where the favor involves taking The Rock out and getting The Rock out of the way so Punk can have his moment, etc. Like, for example, Punk maybe wins it, The Rock tries to convince him to give up the spot for him, etc., etc. There are other options where Cody does sell his soul, and therefore you get the ultimate match of a heel Cody Rhodes, corporate Cody, versus John Cena, with the entire story revolving around the fact that, you know, as Punk mentioned in his promo, no one is Superman. Apart from one man who's never sold his soul, not once, in all of his title reigns, not once sold his soul, and that is John Cena. Therefore, creating the ultimate two different stories. The ultra babyface that when the going got tough sold his soul, and the other one who never would. Is a very interesting story to tell. So there are many different avenues they can go down, and I've barely touched the surface. There are people theorizing that Drew McIntyre could sell his soul to The Rock because The Rock already owes him one, and there's the whole thing of The Rock or him being gifted swords, this, that, and the other. That entire thing can happen where someone completely left field wins it in Drew McIntyre, and actually we end up with something like Punk versus, you know, you end up with the Punk Seth Roman match, and you end up with Logan Paul versus John Cena, and Damian Priest ends up in the mid-card scene.
Yeah.
It all fits into place. There are many different options in this. As I said, for better or for worse, it has made Elimination Chamber incredibly unpredictable. But as you said, that payoff has to be there now.
Yeah.
In the fact of if The Rock had just turned up and done his thing, fine.
Yeah.
But there's that element of the payoff has to be good, because I don't think it's going to result in a Cody versus Rock match. I really do believe The Rock is telling the truth when he says it's not going to.
Yeah.
Part of that was actually what I saw on Twitter today, which was that they're not going to have The Rock lose before facing Roman, because obviously The Rock returned last year to face Roman, and then the fans made the plans change.
Mm-hmm.
But the end goal would have never have changed, which is Rock Roman. And they're never going to have, and they're not going to have The Rock lose before facing Roman, because that makes Roman's win feel, you know, it has less magnitude to it. Because, you know, you've beaten the final bosses who already lost, rather than I've beaten the final boss type thing.
Yeah.
And that moment wouldn't matter as much if he lost to Cody beforehand. So I do believe that bit, and that's then what's making it interesting, is because that's not an option, then what is the option? What is actually happening?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of pointless me going through that because you've kind of touched upon every single scenario I've had in my head. So there's no point. But I think it speaks to the fact that everything is on the table here. This is, you've got the Cody turn, you've got Cody not turning and just rejecting it, and then it's basically whoever's in the chamber. You've got backhand deals with the devil himself. You know, all those shenanigans. I mean, one of the many billions of theories, like everyone else has had, is you could have said person get to the Mania main event, and then you have almost a flashback to that WrestleMania 17 event when Austin shook the hand of Vince, and you have the guy shake the hand with The Rock, and then they get the title, and then it's Cody's broken and defeated, and you know the heel turn continues for whoever has taken the deal. But yeah,
you could literally have it that I didn't even think of this until now, the Austin way.
Yeah.
Where you go into that main event thinking, let's say it's babyface versus babyface, and he does win by nefarious means.
Yeah.
He doesn't sell his soul now. He sells his soul at Mania when it matters most.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, shakes the hand of the devil in front of the entire world, and your moment at the end of Mania is The Rock holding up Cody Rhodes' hand.
Yeah.
Or it could, obviously, as you said, be anyone else in that position. But I didn't even think of that possibility.
Yeah. That's what I mean, though. Like, there's so many different options on the table. Like, it's genuinely... The segment itself wasn't great, but I think the intrigue it's created for Saturday and potentially Friday, depending on how what they approach it with, could really open the door. So, yeah. Hopefully they put some more restraints on the time that Rock's allowed to operate in, because that just to make it a little bit tighter. But you were going to say something there, Bragster. I'll let you finish off there.
It was just it was something that came to mind while I was rambling on earlier, because then I'm going to ramble on again, because of course I do. But you know, it then begs the question: with all of this that has happened, why in the world did Solo Sikoa spike Cody Rhodes? Because we haven't really had much of a follow-up to that, to the extent of, you know, where my sort of thinking was, that's the chamber match for Cody, because of course it is, because you've got Mania on the way. Yeah, that's not going to be the Mania match. We've got the chamber for that. So then what was the point of that? Or is that tied in? Is it, as you said earlier, is the bloodline actually working for The Rock, and this is all a big swerve to the grander plan per se?
Yeah,
it's like that's the part that is partly confusing me. That there's so many loose ends that I feel like they have to either start tying up or tie them completely, because there are too many of them going into Saturday, where if we don't come out of Saturday knowing what Mania is, knowing that it's this person versus Cody Rhodes, knowing the rough road, we might not know every speed bump along the way, but we know who it is, we know what's happening, and we can start promoting the show, we can start getting excited as fans, we can start theorizing who's going to win and who's going to lose. If we don't come out of Saturday feeling like that, there is severe danger of actually this backfiring, that the intrigue that it causes completely retracts, and everyone then gets out of the moment completely, where we're like, well, we've got, you know, there are some people who don't care about Jay versus Gunther.
Yeah.
To which, if you don't care about Jay versus Gunther, and there are a lot of people who don't care about Charlotte Flair in her match, and don't care about that, and you ruin this one, you're really running out of options for people to get hyped about.
Yeah.
Where, you know, the people can excuse one or two of maybe the title matches that just not being their cup of tea.
Yeah.
If there is one universal match that everyone's excited for, if we do not come out of this show with that, we're in dangerous territory of this going from possibly being one of the best Manias to actually being quite a concern.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because I was thinking about that the other day, of getting into sort of end of December, beginning of January territory, I was thinking this could be one of the best Manias we ever have. If they do it right, it could be one of the best Manias we ever have. And we're at a knife's edge here where it could go one way or the other. I'm gonna stick with what I've seen over the past 2 or 3 years under Triple H's stewardship and give him the benefit of the doubt. And even if something doesn't quite go right at Chamber, they still have enough time to turn that round. There's still 6 weeks of build from Chamber onwards, so it's not like they can't magic or book their way out of it. Like, you can always get yourself out of it. Yes, it could be by some less than stellar booking or shenanigans or whatever, but there is still a way out of it. So I'm willing to give it its chance, like I said before, and we'll see what happens. So we'll leave it there for The Rock and Cody, and we'll see what comes on Saturday.